Assalamu alaikum. Peace on you, everybody, tonight. It's a pleasure for me to be here in this TED Talk. I'm very delighted to be with this wonderful audience. I understand that most of the audience here is very engaged in this very important subject that we are going to try to tackle today. I'm here to maybe reveal a little bit of the secrets of what's happening in Sharm el-Sheikh. COP27 is hosted in Egypt. This UN climate change convention, I think, is a very important rendezvous now, annual, for the world to get together to try to find the right path for tackling the climate issues. I want to start by sharing with you why we have chosen this logo for the COP that we are hosting in Egypt. This logo is actually part of the Pharaonic and African roots of civilization. This upper part of the logo refers to the sun. Equally, the lower part refers to the sun god Aton. And this is to say that where civilization have started on the African continent and in Egypt, we are very hopeful that we can catch up with the main philosophy and the rooted philosophy of this civilization. The rooted philosophy of this civilization is that to achieve eternity and successful passage to paradise, you should conduct yourself on earth respectively to the environment, meaning earth, water, and air. This, in Egyptian philosophy, meant that in Judgment Day, a very important question will be asked to the person who is being judged before he would pass to paradise. And one of these questions, and a crucial, and I would say a founding question, was, did he behave properly on earth? Did he respect the Nile? Did he respect the very fragile environment in which Egypt has been endowed by the Creator? And this is something that is very important for all of us to understand and to remind ourselves that this is the cradle of our current civilization. This is how our ancestors used to think of the planet, of the nature around them. And we need to emulate them. We need to empathize with this. We need to believe that this is the right way forward for us to succeed. And to succeed, I think, is definitely possible when we come together and we work together around the world. Now, the symbol here refers to the sun, which in Egyptian philosophy also meant energy, the source of energy for life. It meant also a sign of hope and of renewal for generations and for every day. The sun was rising every day. It meant, and it reminded everybody that there is a new day, a renewal. There is a new rendezvous to conduct yourself properly. The hands that we see in the lower part refers to the generosity of nature. Nature is handing its hands out to the individuals on a daily basis to understand the miracle that they are living through. We, in mind, when we were trying to think ahead to host this very important event that we have hosted also in Sharm el-Sheikh only a couple of years ago, the UN Biodiversity Summit, which is directing us in the same direction of this very fragile biodiversity that we need to preserve while we are dealing with the issues of the environment. We want to call COP27 a COP for implementation. There's been many pledges, in all these COPs, almost 30 years of COP conferences. Many pledges. We have many numbers that have been thrown to the world, but very little have been achieved, actually, in terms of, I would say, translating these pledges into real money that would flow into the right direction to make the process work for everybody. We say that this is the implementation COP. This is also the implementation summit that just concluded yesterday. On the 7th and 8th, there was about 120 heads of states of governments in Egypt. Among them, the very honorable President of Bulgaria, President Radev, and we were very happy to have him also with us in Egypt, with a very big delegation. I think having in mind that this is an implementation summit meant that our guests that were coming to Egypt understood that they need to bring with them, some solutions for how to go forward implementing what we have agreed on in these building blocks process of COP conferences. We also want to think of this summit that took place as a summit for Africa. A summit for Africa because Africa is about 1/4 of the states around the world. It is an untapped continent. It's still a virgin in so many different ways, but it have almost zero contribution to the situation that we have of warming of our planet. Its contribution is less than 1% in terms of why the planet is warming up in a very fast way. And despite that, it is asked to make a contribution, and it has to be empowered. Nations of Africa, people of Africa have to be empowered to do this contribution and to contribute their fair and just share in solving that very important issue at hand. I think I would like to present 2 parts for my talk. One part has to do with how we're going to tackle climate change. The other part has to do with the Egyptian example and the Egyptian contribution to this very important question. Now, we think, that very important questions we have to ask ourselves as world community. Are we ready to cooperate and sustain a high priority for the climate action in this very difficult environment that we live today? We're living in a situation of geopolitical tensions. We're living in a situation where many of the, as I said, the targets that have been put have been seeing a reversal. Countries are going back to coal as a source of energy. We have an issue of food security around the world. We have an issue of rising costs and a very, very difficult environment in terms of financing. So these are very, very important questions for the future of tackling this important issue of climate change. Can also we create a true low-carbon green transition for all, not for one part of the world, not only for the industrialized world, but for everybody, through our action for the future generation? And this is the major questions that COP27 in Egypt tries to answer. These are very important questions, I think, and the trajectory of multilateralism, of people working together around the world, not only in the UN context, but also at the level of nations, at the level of people-to-people action, at the level of businesses, at the level of the art and the media. All of this will be able to answer these questions for us for the future. I mean, the high-level summit is a symbolic part of the COP, but COP has many aspects to it. Some of the aspects, is enshrined in how these 30,000 plus people in Sharm el-Sheikh now are going to interact with each other, are going to make this a high priority for wherever they are active, wherever they are reaching out for others around the world. How we are doing a transformation of the city of Sharm el-Sheikh into a green city will impact the, I would say, and will impress upon the participants to maybe try to look at this as a way forward also for transforming cities around the world. How the intergovernmental negotiations is going to take the lead from the political leaders, from the political will that needs to be there, from a belief that we need to do something together to succeed. These are all very, very important issues that is important also for the business community that you are in big part here with us today. So I would say that engagement is one of the main things that we intend to accomplish through hosting COP27s. We want to make this a cause for the whole world, not for a part of the world, and not for a selective few. I believe personally that, and our leadership in Egypt believes, that there is a big, what I would call a grand bargain, a big bargain in COP27, a big bargain which is the developing countries in Africa and in other parts of the world will take their just and fair share of the contribution to the climate change issue in return for receiving, I would say, concessional finance, receiving technology, receiving training, receiving opportunities to understand how to tackle these issues in a collective way. I would say that this perspective of this grand bargain, something very, very important for the world community as a whole. Because in all successes, we need to have a give and take. We need to have a situation where everybody feels he's a winner. Everybody needs to feel that he's a winner. In the developing world, it's very difficult to request for them in a poverty situation to make this effort when they are not able to, for example, print money like many G7 countries are doing to survive COVID or to survive the geopolitical crisis that we are going through now, or to survive inflation. They cannot be asked, and it's impossible for them to manage a debt that is more than 250% like one country in the G7 is managing today, and is still getting credit from AAA institutions, at a very cheap rate, while African countries are not able, or Latin American countries or other developing countries are not able to tap into this concessional finance. Concessional finance means finance that does not necessarily burden these countries with very, very high interest rates, but also unduly political risks that are not really taken into account properly by these financial institutions. So the role of our financial institutions, IFIs, international financial institutions, development institutions, are very, very crucial for our success and for our way forward together. Also, I would say that we try to lead by example by, I would say, before COP, making it clear to the world in June 2022 that we are ready to announce more, I would say, commitments in the future. We are in the position, to announce that we want to reduce greenhouse gases in Egypt by 33% in 2030. We want to reduce the reliance on fossil fuels by 65% in 2030. We want to have more green transportation, up to 7–10% in the coming years. We want to do urban developments and industrial developments in a more green way as we go forward. These are all important indicators, as a host country for the rest of the world to understand why they need to do their fair share in solving this very important issue at hand. We have availed also a very, very big space for young people, for NGOs, for women, for thematic issues, that will be discussed in COP in the coming days, and that this debate will continue until we would hand the presidency of the COP activities to the upcoming country, which is the United Arab Emirates. Very few words, I have only a couple of minutes to wrap up my talk about what Egypt is doing. Egypt is actually, as I said, leading by example. We have renewed our determined contributions in June, as I mentioned. We are in a trajectory for a green industrial activity in Egypt, particularly hydrogen projects. We aspire to produce more than 8% of world hydrogen in 2025 from green resources, mainly from solar and from wind resources. We are doing actually a development of renewables as part of the energy mix in Egypt, which would reach 42% by 2035. Today, it's at 22%. We are greening the budget in Egypt, meaning every project on the budget in Egypt will have to have a green component and will have to take the climate issues in consideration. We are recycling water in Egypt, which is a very scarce resource, up to 3 times for agricultural purposes around the country. And we are developing, very sustainable and long-term plans for sustainable development, SDGs in the UN by 2030, national climate strategy for 2050, and a very important initiative that has been uptaken by the Egyptian government is called Decent Life. And this in itself is a whole presentation, but I will just say in a few words what it is. Decent Life is a big developmental endeavor to reach out for 60 million people living in the countryside in Egypt, to transform their lives into modern a life that is environmentally compatible to the green targets and to zero carbon economy in the coming years. We are spending more than 1 trillion Egyptian pounds on this initiative for the coming 3 years, and we hope that we will be able to succeed. With all this, I think, fantastic audience, I'm very happy to be able to share some of these ideas with you today and to maybe look forward for a very, very vibrant debate through the night. Thank you very much.